Hello, my minnow friends. It's time to address another topic in the category of dietary options for managing your menopause. You know, we've talked a lot about food, but we haven't talked about the labeling on the food. I've given you a bunch of tutorials on plant-based foods, dairy, spices, gluten, and even nutrition myths. This tutorial is going to be on the labeling on food packaging that misleads you. You'll be shocked at some of what I have to teach you. This is one of those tutorials that is purely practical. You don't need your book or notes for it, and you should get your whole family to watch it with you. This is the kind of information that nobody teaches you. But after watching this, you'll notice labeling tricks on most foods. First, let me distinguish the different kinds of labeling on food. So packaged foods have two different types of labeling. On the front and the back and the sides, you see all sorts of written information on every package. That's the material we'll address today. In a rectangular white box, you'll see what is called a nutrition label. We will not address the nutrition label today. That's the topic for the next tutorial. So for purposes of today's video, we're only talking about all this stuff that is not inside that white nutrition label. All the things that are written on the box. I'm going to teach you the pitfalls of all this writing you see all over the package. There are multiple categories of labeling pitfalls, so we'll address them by category, and I'll give you examples for each one. The first category, and by far the largest category, is misleading health claims. This is where the label uses a term or makes a claim that is false or misleading. That term or claim makes you think the food is healthier than it really is. So I'll demonstrate a few of these. The most common example of a misleading health claim is use of the word natural. So you see this in many forms. So this says all natural right here. It may say all natural, it may say made naturally, or it may just say natural. This one says naturally delicious. Most consumers think the word natural on food labels means that there's no artificial ingredients, or no artificial colors, or non-GMO, or no pesticides, or no drugs or antibiotics. Well, I hate to tell you this, but it means none of these things. All it does is mislead you into thinking it means more than it actually does. The fact is that the FDA does not even have a definition for the word natural. And that means that the lack of government standards allows companies to use the word natural to mean whatever they want it to mean. The word natural doesn't even mean the food is healthy. At most, it means that there are no synthetic or lab-made ingredients in it. But there's a lot of room for interpretation. So, a food bearing the word natural on its label may contain preservatives, it may be injected with sodium, it may have high fructose corn syrup, which the company will say is natural because it comes from corn. So don't fall for this. If a food is packaged in the first place, it probably isn't natural. Natural foods are obvious. They're all the fresh fruits and vegetables, raw nuts and whole grains. So don't believe it when you see the word natural on a package. It's hardly ever natural. Another misleading health claim is use of the word energy. So here you have energy chews. The package may say high in energy, gives you energy, or energizing. Do you know what energy is in terms of food? It's calories. period. When you see it on a food label, it usually means it's high in sugar because sugar has a lot of calories. So this one here is kind of funny. It says muscle brownie. Instead of using the word energy, it uses the word muscle. Ladies, I assure you that brownies will not give you muscles. So just substitute the word calories for the word energy, and your interpretation will be more accurate. Now next is the buzz term, real ingredients. So here, this has real cherries. See, this one kills me. What in the world does that mean? You assume it means of premium or higher quality, but it doesn't really mean anything. What about this one? Made with real fruit. Products that say made with real fruit may not contain much or any of the type of fruit pictured on the box. They don't even have to disclose the percentage of ingredients. So there may be a speck of real fruit, and they can still write made with real fruit on the package. This is real fruit. And notice that this real fruit does not have to write real fruit on the label or on the product. The fact is that it's real. The fact that it's real is really obvious. The next misleading label is the word organic. The word organic refers to how the food was grown. It doesn't reflect how healthy the food is at all. An organic food can still be full of fat, calories, and sugar. It can still be genetically modified. It may have been grown in a heavily polluted country. It may still be full of heavy metals. None of these things has anything to do with regulations for what qualifies as organic. So don't assume that the word organic means healthy or uncontaminated or safe. It doesn't. All organic means is that the food was grown in a certain way and nothing else about the food is taken into account. So the first category of misleading health claims includes all of the following terms: natural, energy, real ingredients, and organic. The second category of misleading labels is called nutrient call-outs. Now this is where there's a banner of nutrition information emblazoned on the front of the product. In the food industry, it's called facts up front. The problem is that the term was created by the food industry itself. And the other problem is that they're not facts, they're fibs. And the most telling thing is that you see them most commonly on unhealthy foods. This is where the front of the package advertises what's in the package. So here you have high protein. It's a very popular one. Protein is a buzzword these days. When you see it, you think, oh, if it has protein, it must be healthy. But you're wrong. Sometimes the label will say, now with added protein. But here are the parameters for using any of these protein claims. It only has to have 25% more protein than the original version of the product. And the 25% more compares only to the other products made by that same company. So it just depends on how much protein was in the previous product made by that company. That's not really much of a standard. So when you see this, you have to understand what it means. Food companies can get around a lot of this by simply using the label added protein, as if more protein makes the product or us healthier. The fact is that we already eat too much protein. Adding more isn't healthy, and it doesn't make the product more healthy. And there's another one. There's that next overused nutrient call-out, which is multigrain, or made with whole grains. or 12 grain. You see these labels on everything. You can have multiple grains or 12 grains or even have a small percentage of whole grains. None of these things makes the food healthy. What you have to qualify as healthy is whole grain, period. You want the product to be predominantly whole grains. Actually, some of these products actually have first ingredient whole grain, okay? Whole grain should be the first item in the list of ingredients. If it's not the first item, then it's not predominantly whole grains. You can make a whole loaf of bread with every grain in the world, but if they're not whole grains, they're not worth eating. Okay, next is the label high in antioxidants or high antioxidant activity. Now, we all know that antioxidants are good for us, and there are certain foods that are definitely high in antioxidants. They include fruits and vegetables like pomegranates, green tea, dark green veggies, berries, walnuts, cloves, cinnamon, oregano, even dark chocolate. But the foods with high antioxidant activity don't usually come in a package that requires a lot of labeling. They're fresh fruits and vegetables, so don't fall for high antioxidant labeling. Another one is a label that claims immunity boosters. This is where a product claims to contain vitamins or minerals. And usually it's a product that normally doesn't contain those vitamins or minerals. And the mere fact that this unusual product does contain them means it contains very little. Companies walk a really fine line with this particular claim. It can trigger intense scrutiny by the FDA. Here is vitamin water. Now, you know that water doesn't contain vitamins, right? So the vitamin water costs a lot more than regular water, and it's sweeter. So does it make any sense at all to buy water that contains vitamins? And how much of a vitamin does this water have to have in order to warrant calling it vitamin water if water does not normally contain vitamins? Here's another nutrient call out. High fiber. You see high fiber on a lot of things. Now, high fiber means processed. High fiber products are boosted with a processed form of fiber. They are not full of the fiber you get in fresh fruits and vegetables. Instead, they're in the form of purified powders like maltodextrin. So instead of fiber, you get fibs. We should call them high fiber, not high fiber. You'll see these fake fibers disguised under names like oat fiber, wheat fiber, oat hull fiber. Don't fall for these fibbers. Just eat fresh fruits and veggies for your fiber. And here is a very trendy one. Superfoods. Okay, superfood. Just think about this. Would you really fall for that? Superfoods are nothing more than trendy ingredients that are more expensive than other foods. They're 99% spin and 1% science. The real superfoods will always be fruits and vegetables. And there's no need to write those on the products or on the package. So this is pasta, but it's called super greens. You see what I mean? It's pasta. And then there are some really specific ones like creamy, which just means fat. It means full of fat. That's all creamy means. And then there's the term fresh, which only means not frozen or canned. But every now and then you see something like this, fresh cut, even though it is canned. So to summarize, the nutrient callouts to watch for are high in protein, multigrain or 12 grain, high in antioxidants, immunity boosters, high fiber or high fiber, superfood, creamy, and fresh. All right, the third big category of misleading food labeling is to advertise what's missing. In other words, to point out what the food does not have. You see this everywhere, in every rich way. The most popular is some version of fat-free or cholesterol-free or nearly calorie-free. This one is really tricky. These labels lead you to believe that the product is lacking in fat or calories, which in fact it isn't. One of the most common ones is the word light, L-I-G-H-T, or light, L-I-T-E. Here's light. Here's fat-free. You think they mean less fat, but guess what? Light, L-I-G-H-T, or L-I-T-E, may refer to a lighter color, a lighter taste, or minimally decreased fat. So here we have reduced fat potato chips. Now think about that. Potato chips are fried to a crisp. That means they have fat in them. Here is a light syrup. Do you notice how clear it is? Because the light means light in color. What about light milk? Light milk only has 25% less fat than the full fat version. And other products besides milk that are light have to have 50% less fat than comparable products. What about 2% milk? That's another one. I mean, 2% sounds like such a low number. But do you know the percentage of fat in whole milk? It's only 3.25%. So 2% milk does contain a little less fat than whole milk, but not much. 2% may also say reduced fat because it has 25% less fat than whole milk. But the only milk that really meets the standard for being labeled low fat is 1% or skim milk. But the truly low fat milk is actually less than 0.5%. Do you see how these numbers differ quite a bit? What about cholesterol? Cholesterol is found only in animal products. So if you see cholesterol-free on a non-animal product, the joke is on you. This is a prime example of marketers exploiting your ignorance. Non-animal foods don't contain cholesterol in the first place. So the label is true, but it's ludicrous. The label no cholesterol doesn't even translate literally. It does not mean no cholesterol as you'd expect. Here are the actual standards for being able to put that on the label. For a product to be labeled cholesterol-free, it only has to contain less than 2 milligrams per serving of cholesterol. Low cholesterol products have to contain 20 milligrams or less per serving. And reduced or less cholesterol products have to have 25% less than comparable products. Do you see how deceiving all this is? Did you have any idea that none of this labeling language means what you think it means? Never believe anything you see about lower cholesterol. What about zero trans fat? There's zero trans fat in this chocolate and in this cooking spray. Do you know what zero trans fat means? What does zero mean to you? Zero? Well, if you thought zero meant zero on zero trans fat labels, you would be wrong. That's right. Instead of zero, it means less than or equal to 0.5. Even in basic math, 0.5 is rounded up to 1. But not here. When it comes to trans fat labeling on food, 0 means up to 0.5. And remember, this is per serving. So what the food companies do is just change the serving size so that the trans fat value is 0.5 or lower. To put this into perspective for you, The World Health Organization says that you should eat no more than 2 grams of trans fats daily. And you could very easily consume that much by eating nothing but foods that say they have 0 trans fat. Shocking, isn't it? And that's not the only kind of low-fat labeling out there to fool you. We've even got low-fat candy. If it's candy, the low-fat designation just means pure sugar. Oh, and then we have the good old sugar-free labels. Let's see. Here we have sugar-free sugar wafers. Here we have no sugar added juice. Here we have lightly sweetened juice. Sugar-free does not mean the product has fewer calories than the regular version. It may actually have more. Sugar-free products have less than 0.5 grams of sugar per serving, but they can still contain a lot of calories from other sources. Sometimes they contain sugar alcohols, which are lower in calories, but they cause diarrhea. And sugar alcohols have 2 calories per gram, whereas sugar has 4 calories per gram. And products touting no sugar added just mean that they probably already contain a lot of natural sugar. It does not mean that they're low in calories or carbohydrates. The only things that are included in the no sugar added or no added sugar labeling are cane sugar, honey, and syrup. All the other sugars are allowed. And low calorie usually means that chemical sweetener has been added. Usually it's sucralose, saccharin, or aspartame, or acesulfame potassium. One of the biggest offenders is diet sodas. You know, low-calorie soft drinks are full of phosphoric acid that corrodes your teeth and bones terribly. And they are not all low-calorie. Just know that sugar comes in many, many forms. Any label pertaining to sugar is probably untrue. And the more the label downplays the amount of sugar, the more there probably is in the product. Here's another common one, gluten-free. You know, gluten-free products are everywhere. It says gluten-free here, okay? They're everywhere these days. Gluten-free foods may not have gluten, but they may have all sorts of other things that are hidden. Sometimes they contain insecticides, and gluten-free has absolutely nothing to do with being organic or non-GMO. So if you don't have gluten intolerance or celiac disease, gluten is actually good for you. Okay, so the things to look out for in the what's missing category are fat-free and cholesterol-free, light, L-I-G-H-T, or light, L-I-T-E, 0 trans fat, low fat, sugar-free, low calorie, diet, and gluten-free. Lastly, there are a bunch of terms related to how the animals you eat were raised. Most of them do not mean what you expect them to mean. Here are a few examples. Free range only means access to the outdoors. It has nothing to do with requiring that the animal actually went outdoors. You think they're out running in the field, but all it requires is exposure to the outdoors. So if there was an open window near the cage, it qualifies as free range. Cage-free is often confused with free range. Cage-free can mean housed inside a barn with no access to the outdoors. It's only the cage that is missing. Grass-fed does not distinguish between the animal being in a pasture versus only feeding the animal organic feed. And it doesn't mean there were no hormones or antibiotics in the feed. Pasture-raised has no legal definition at all. Neither does the word pastured. It can mean whatever the producer wants it to mean. You see, with no formal definition or regulation, there's no enforcement. vegetarian-fed eggs is a complete oxymoron. Chickens are omnivores. They eat bugs and insects as well as grain. Chickens can actually get sick if they don't eat animal products. So all the labels on animal products specifying anything about how the animal was raised or fed are pretty bogus. Gosh, I know you're probably thinking that you can't believe anything that's on a food package. And you're right, you can't. The bottom line in this tutorial is that the labeling is nothing but marketing. Nothing that's on the package has to be true, and none of the language means what you think it means. You don't even know the standards for making certain claims. Now, none of these product manufacturers is doing anything wrong. Nothing I showed you is bad or the manufacturer has done anything wrong. They're just following the rules of the industry. And you just need to understand the rules of the industry so that you understand those rules are specifically for purposes of advertising. And you know, marketers will always find a way to get around any regulations or rules. So just ignore everything that's written on any package. All that matters is what's in that white rectangular box called the nutrition label. Everything you need to know is in that white nutrition label. Nothing else matters. The problem is that most people have no idea how to read the white nutrition label. Not to worry. In the next tutorial, I'll teach you how to read and interpret that white rectangular nutrition label. You'll never have to rely on dishonest marketing ploys again. So, come back in a week for that one, and between now and then, pay attention to all these misleading labels. They're everywhere. Walk in any store, look at any product, they're everywhere. It's just the way it is. So in the meantime, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in a week. Bye.